upstream developers are generally like overworked.
Mhm.
That's just how I see it.
Mhm.
And that's one of the reasons why like I become very like defensive
Mhm.
when it comes to like downstream packaging and stuff like that
Mhm.
because like us upstream maintainers already have like so many things to worry about, and
Mhm.
by the fact that you're like you guys are packaging this
Mhm.
app, like my app, the wrong way now. It's like you're adding more fuel to
Mhm.
the fire, and it's just like that's like what happened with bottles as well. Like at least for me, like
Mhm.
I got burnt out, like Georgian's level burnt out
Mhm.
from the. I mean, you probably noticed it, and
Yeah, no, I've read the issue tracker.
yeah, I was really tired of being too nice. Like I remember, like it wasn't just in trackers. It was on Discord as well.
Mhm.
People, it was just like consistently like, oh, I have this problem. I have this problem, and um, then you ask, is if like we didn't. It was to the point where like we weren't asking what package they were using. We were asking if they were using the RPM because
Mhm.
that's just how bad it got. Like
Yeah.
it was just broken. Um, and like I just got really tired of like dealing with all that, and yeah, I mean, I lashed out,
Mhm.
but I mean, if I like I did reread it like after I left bottles, and I still stand by everything I said.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's like one thing I can tell you is that the original comments
Mhm.
were 10 times worse. Um, yeah, no, probably 10 times is an understatement. That's how much I would say.
Mhm.
Um, someone was actually helping me like make it sound more neutral.
Right.
Um, because like I knew that I was really like I was burnt out, and like that's just something that I realized, but I didn't really had the guts. I didn't
Mhm.
really have the guts to like leave the project,
Mhm.
and yeah, so like I just asked that person like, oh, can you help me like write this in a way that isn't like rude.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's that whole thing was a mess. And now, to be fair, I'm not saying that like Fedora as a whole is bad. Like
Mhm.
Fedora is still a wonderful community. Like we look at the website team
Mhm.
or the design team, like they're wonderful people. It's just
Mhm.
like that was the like that one time when I just had a terrible experience with Fedora, as
Right.
I guess we could say as an organization. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's but still, like I still learned a lot from Fedora. I still participated as
Mhm.
much as I could, and a lot of contributors were very welcoming. And I mean, there are also a lot of people that I really, really like.
Mhm.
And yeah, but still, like it's not. It's just like sometimes I do think like even if a maintainer is kind of an asshole, like I try to like be respectful,
Right.
like be like, okay, well, sure, you may have a bad take, and like you have a bad take. I'm just gonna respect it and not, you know, I don't want to cause any problems to you.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's like like people are like, oh yeah, like you just want everything to be a flat pack, which is like, I mean, yeah, sure, like that is to some extent true, but like if a maintainer doesn't want to make turn it into a flat pack, then I'm just gonna respect that. Like
Right.
I'm gonna be like, hey, if you want to snap, go for it. Like you're allowed to use inferior platforms, but like go for it.
Well,
I don't want to like be an ass to you.
speaking of snaps, we saw a very similar case happen with the Steam Snap, where some Valve devs were like, "Can you stop using this thing? It's just broken. Like we
Yeah,
can't fix it. It's broken. Go blame Canonical for it being broke. Like tell them about. We are not maintaining this. Like it's not our problem."
yeah, yeah. Right. It's I think it's more of the unfortunate state, like because the Steam Flatpak. used to be really, really bad, like
Mhm.
unusably bad. Um, and it was just a matter of time that it got better and actually usable. Like even to the point that I actually use it on a daily basis. Like I use the Steam Flatpak
Mhm.
daily now. Um, but like at least with Snap, like they recently started the Steam Snap,
Mhm.
so I do understand why it's like completely broken, and I think that they will fix it. Like it will improve as time goes on.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's like, you know, I would tell the employees, like the Valve employees, to like tell Canonical, like go directly tell Canonical to stop doing it.
Mhm.
Tell them to drop the packaging entirely. Um, but yeah, but yeah, it must really suck for the developers.
Mhm. Well, it
Who
was
have to deal with Snap.
the funny part is apparently some internal Valve developers were using the Snap and didn't realize it because it also did like package redirection, which is a thing Canonical likes to do. You think you install the
Yeah.
app, but it actually installs the Snap, um, which makes sense for Firefox because the Firefox Snap is in a fairly good state, but the Steam Snap is not in that state. Like
Hmm.
that shouldn't be getting done. Um, but where I was getting at here is after I'm done with this, I've got another video I'm gonna do, talking about like where you should be reporting bugs, like talking about upstream and downstream bug trackers, how to decide where to actually go with the bug report, because people, this is especially true I see on like the Debian bug tracker, for example. People say, well, users will go to like the distro bug tracker, and that's not what's gonna happen. Like your experience with
Hmm.
bottles is a great example with this. People on Fedora were going to to the bottles developers with problems with bottles. They weren't going to the Fedora bug tracker. I'm sure some of them were, without a doubt. But a lot
Hmm.
of other people were like, "Oh, I'm running bottles. I'm going to be a good contributor. I'm going to go directly to the project and tell them about the problem so they can fix the problem." But
Hmm.
it wasn't issues that you could deal with because it was entirely issues with the packaging, and that's true for that one. It's gonna be it's gonna be very true. So apparently there's some work to get Hyperland package on Debian, and we both know that Debian, by the end of its life cycle, is about 2 years out of date. So I have no doubt that there will be 2-year-old bug reports being made on the project if that ends up actually happening. People don't go just to the distro bug tracker. That's not a thing that happens.
Yeah, no, that's not true at all. Like the worst part is that a lot of those distros they display it so badly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like if you look at Fedora, at least on Fedora's side,
Mm-hmm.
they use Bugzilla.
Mm-hmm.
No one in their right mind wants to use Bugzilla. Like you must be fucking crazy. Like if you're gonna use Bugzilla, and let me tell you that, like there are people who dislike or like who just don't want to deal with Bugzilla or like
Mm-hmm.
the issue trackers, like downstream issue tracking side.
Mm-hmm.
So they will willingly, I mean, um, report to upstream
Mm-hmm.
because it's just easier. Like GNOME uses GitLab. GitLab is just easier to use.
Mm-hmm.
So why not open it in GitLab and yeah, in GNOME GitLab, like to upstream,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll probably like deal with it later. But you know that's like the problem. Like it's not just the fact that users are reporting upstream, it's also that reporting downstream is in many cases really difficult.
Yeah.
Um and this is like one of the reasons why like I just love NixOS
Mm-hmm.
is like NixOS they did a wonderful job at like targeting their like because their target audience is like really really technical users.
Sure. Yeah.
Um
That's a nice way to
and
put
those
it.
technical users are like they understand the distribution model.
Mm-hmm.
So they know that okay, if there's an issue with a Nix package, they're going to report it to downstream. And that
Mm-hmm.
is very much like that is one of the few cases where downstream distros saying that like users will report it downstream first is like true.
Mhm.
But when we look at Fedora, like at least with Fedora or like Ubuntu, Fedora and Ubuntu, for example, um, it's quite like their target audience is the average person, basically,
Mhm.
or the average developer, like people who don't really understand the distribution model.
Mhm.
And because of that, like for them, they're gonna assume that it's just like iOS or Mac OS or Windows, where
Mhm.
everything is directly from developers when it is not true at all.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's just like it used to be true at the time, but Fedora, like now that we're trying to um um target the average user, like the distribution model doesn't really work anymore.
Mhm.
For NixOS, it does, because the target audience is the people like who do know the distribution model.
Mhm.
Same thing with Gentoo. Same thing with Arch to some extent.
Yeah,
The only
Arch is a
difference is
weird
that
one.
Arch, yeah, like Arch is targeted for uh smart people,
But then you
but
have
a lot of
Endeavor.
the
That's the problem. And Arco. And Garuda.
well, it's not really. Yeah, that is definitely a problem. Oh yeah, don't get me started on Manjaro. Um,
Yeah.
there's, but it's not just that. Well, I mean, well, with Arch, it's a little bit of a special case because, like, I'm gonna be honest, like, a large chunk of the Arch community is filled with idiots who don't understand how it, anything works, really.
Yep.
Um, that's why, like, for me, that's like one of the things of like with at least with bottles that
Mhm.
I was really hesitant because I understand Arches, like, I don't want to inconvenience the Arch developers because, like, they are targeting advanced users
Mhm.
and which are expected to understand the distribution model. So, like, I don't want to interfere with that.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's like half the user base is filled with morons. It's like, bruh, it's just a bruh. Like, I don't know. I just, yeah, it's just difficult to decide.
Mhm.